Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Dhamashloke Bhaktirvavati Naistiki Yam Pravrajam Krityam Dvaipayana Virahakatara Juhava Putretidam Mayatayo Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. Hare Krishna. So, we'll read today from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And recently the Prime Minister asked me to read from the 5th chapter of the third canto, but I will read from the 2nd chapter of the third. But the topic is the same. The 2nd chapter of the third canto is called Remembrance of Lord Krishna, and it consists of the outpourings of the heart of Uddhava while he is remembering Lord Krishna. And it's very practical, because ultimately that's the state of mind which we also ideally have to achieve while remembering Krishna. So it's instructive in the sense that it teaches us how to remember him, what to remember about him, what does it mean to remember about Krishna. So that's why I thought I will read today the 12th verse of this chapter, and tomorrow, let's see, maybe some other verse. It's a very famous verse from this chapter. Yat Martya Leela Upaikam Svayogamaya Balam Darshayata Grihitam Vismapanam Swasya Cha Sobhagaridhe Param Padam Bhushana Angam Yanmartya Loka Lilapaikam Svayogam. No problem.
The verse and then we can open.
3, 2nd, 12.
3, 7, 12.
Yanmartya Lilopaikam Svayogam. Mayavalam Darshayata Grihitam Vismapanam Swasya Cha Sobhagardhe Param Padam Bhushana Bhushanangam Yanmatya Lilopaikam Svayogam Mayavalam Darshayata Grihitam Vismapanam Swasya Sobhagardhe
Vismapanam Swasya Cha Sobhagardhe
Param Padam Bhushana Bhushanangam
Yanmartya Vaikam Swayoga Maya Balam Darshayata Grihitam Vismapanam Swasya Cha Sobhagardhe Param Padam Bhushana Bhushanangam
Yanmatya Leela Vaikam Swayoga Maya Balam Darshayata Grihitam Vismapanam स्वस्य च सौभाग्यदे गर्धे
विस्मापनं स्वस्य च सौभाग्ये
परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम्
परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम्
यमत्यलीला पैकं सुयोगा
यमत्यलीलावैकं स्वयोगा
माया बलं दर्शयता गृहीतम्
मायाबलं दर्शयता गृहीतम्
विस्मापनं स्वस्य च सुभागधीः
विस्मापनं स्वस्य च सौभाग्ये
परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम्
परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम् यमत्यलीलावैकं स्वयोगा मायाबलं दर्शयता गृहीतम् विस्मापनं स्वस्य च सौभाग्ये परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम् यमत्यलीलावैकं स्वयोगा मायाबलं दर्शयता गृहीतम् विस्मापनं स्वस्य च सौभाग्ये परं पदं भूषणभूषणाङ्गम् His eternal form, which Martya, mortal world, Lila Upaikam, just suitable for the pastimes, Svayoga Maya Balam, potency of the internal energy, Darshayata, for manifestation, Grihitam, discover, Vismapanam, wonderful, Swasya, of his own, Cha, and Sobhagaridhe, of the opulent, Param, supreme, Padam, ultimate stand, Bhushana, ornament, Bhushana Angam, of the ornaments. Translation. The Lord appeared in the mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. He came in his internal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those people proud, of their own opulence, including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus, Sri Krishna's transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments. Purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vijnana Swami Prabhupada. In conformity with the Vedic hymns, Nitya Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam, the personality of Godhead is more excellent than all other living beings within all the universes in the material world. He is the chief of all living entities. No one can surpass him or be equal to him in wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. When Lord Krishna was within this universe, he seemed to be a human being because he appeared in a manner just suitable for his pastimes in the mortal world. He did not appear in human society in his Vaikuntha feature with 4 hands, because that would have been not have been suitable for his pastimes. But in spite of his appearing as a human being, no one was or is equal to him in any respect, in any of the 6 different opulences. Everyone is more or less proud of his opulence in this world, but when Lord Krishna was in human society, he excelled all his contemporaries within the universe. When the Lord's pastimes are visible to the human eye, they are called prakata. And when they are not visible, they are called aprakata. In fact, the Lord's pastimes never stop, just as the sun never leaves the sky. The sun is always in its right orbit in the sky, but it is sometimes visible and sometimes invisible to our limited vision. Similarly, the pastimes of the Lord are always current in one universe or another. And when Lord Krishna disappeared from the transcendental abode of Dwaraka, it was simply a disappearance from the eyes of the people there. It should not be misunderstood that his transcendental body, which is just suitable for the pastimes in the mortal world, is in any way inferior to his different expansions in Vaikuntha Lokas. His beauty, his body manifested in the material world, is transcendental par excellence, in the sense that his pastimes in the mortal world excel his mercy displayed in the Vaikuntha Lokas. In the Vaikuntha Lokas, the Lord is merciful towards the liberated or Nitya Mukta living entities, but in his pastimes in the mortal world, he is merciful even to the fallen souls who are Nitya Baddha, or conditioned forever. The 6 excellent opulences which he displayed in the mortal world by the agency of his internal potency, Yogamaya, are rare even in the Vaikuntha Lokas. All his pastimes were manifested not by the material energy, but by his spiritual energy. The excellence of his Rasalila and Vrindavan, and his householder life with 16,000 wives is wonderful even for Narayana in Vaikuntha, and is certainly so for other living entities within this mortal world. His pastimes are wonderful even for other incarnations of the Lord, such as Sri Rama, Nrisimha, Varaha. His opulence was so super excellent that his pastimes were adored even by the Lord of Vaikuntha, who is not different from Lord Krishna himself. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yanmartya loka lilavayikam svayogam mayabalam darshayata prihitam vismapanam svasya chaso bhagarte parampadam bhushanam. The Lord appeared in the mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. He came in his eternal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. His pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence, including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus, his, Sri Krishna's transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vijnana Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Krishna Shatani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Ajanamam Pujo Panavada Sankirtanaya Pitaro Kamavaya Vishwambaro Vijamaro Yugadharma Paula Vande Jagat Priya Karam Karunavadhara Yantah pravishyamam avachinamam prasuddham sanjivaya tekila shaktidarasvadhamna anyavasya hasta charana shravana vagani pranamnamo bhagavate purushaya. So I read this verse, which is one of the beginning verses of Uddhava's remembrances of Lord Krishna, in particularly in Vrindavan. And as I said, these verses are there in Srimad Bhagavatam to teach us how to remember about the Lord. But Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita said, Manmanava Madbhakto Mumyajimam Namaskuru. And the Acharyas, they glorify this particular verse of Bhagavad Gita, which is repeated twice in a very small book, such as Bhagavad Gita, as the main verse in the whole book. Mana Bhagamat Bhakto Mam Yajimam Namaskuru Mama Vaishya Sakante Pratijana Prevasana. Ultimately, the goal of human life, the very essence of human life, is to learn how to remember about God. Why? Because if we learn how to remember about God, in which way to remember about God, if we, by remembering God, will overshadow all our material samskaras and impressions which are there in the mind, then at the end of our life, in the moment of death, we will naturally remember about the Lord. If we don't remember about the Lord during the life, and sometimes people think, oh, now I know the secret, I know the trick. At the end of my life, I will remember about God. Forget it. You will not remember. Because you forget Him when you are in your right consciousness. How come you will be able to remember Him when the whole body is paining and there is such a drama going on? You're leaving your body, you're dying. The only way to remember God in the moment of death, Ante Narayana Smriti, and it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly that that's the perfection of all our endeavors. Ante Narayana Smriti. If at the end we will be able to remember Narayana. And King Kulakshekar, the famous Alvar from South India, he says, Smaranam Kutaste, Pranaprayana Samaya Smaranam Kutaste. How is it possible to remember about the Lord at the moment of leaving the body? Why? Because, what is this? Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjaratnam Tajaya Vamaya Rishatumana Saraja Hamsa Pranapranayana Samaye Kapavata Tita Kantavarodhan Smaranam Kutas. And the moment of death, Kapavate Pita, all the humors of the body become completely disturbed. Everything, the body becomes a mess. Even when we are relatively healthy, if there is some problem, there is some little pain in our pinky, all our attention goes to pinky. So we cannot really remember about the Lord or anything else. We're completely absorbed in this bodily consciousness. And therefore, King Kulashekar says, Pranaprayana Samaye Kapavata Pita Kantavarodhana. Our throat will become blocked. We will not be able to say Krishna. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti there says that at the moment of death, somebody says, that's what he says, and he becomes according to the statement of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. We only remember about our body, and whatever is prominent in our consciousness will surface at that moment, of course, and that's called karma. But when we learn how to remember about the Lord in our normal consciousness, then it will be a success. Manmana, think about it. So these two words actually is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches us this. Remember about me, then your life will be very easy in this world. If we remember about God, all the obstacles will be very easy. Because we will know that these obstacles are sent by God. And they are ultimately good for us. When we don't remember about God and we encounter some obstacles, we become very stressed. We try to, overcome these obstacles. Of course, we have to overcome these obstacles, but the consciousness with which we are doing this may be different. So if we remember the Lord with gratitude in every circumstance of our life, then our life will become very happy experience. And it's a big heart. It's a big heart to be always grateful to the Lord. Thank you, my Lord. Thank you for sending this disease, for sending these problems which are there. Then the whole life will become what it is supposed to be. The life is supposed to be learning experience. And actually, this is what we have to learn. We have to learn how to remember about God. Therefore, Queen Kunti in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, she says that Vipadam Santu Takshasvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru. He says, oh my dear Lord, thank you for sending this Vipadam, all these dangerous situations. And she basically says that Vipadam has become my Sampadam. Sampadam means wealth. All the dangerous situations has become my wealth. Why? Because that helps to remember you. So, and we know when there is no dangerous situation, we don't remember about God. And it's a little dangerous. We say, oh my Lord, yeah, I know you there. Please help me. So, in reality, we have to learn how to remember God always, 24 hours a day. Even when we are sleeping, we still should remember God. And therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami, he very interestingly describes this process of smaranam in Bhakti Sandarbha. He says, first of all, you cannot remember God, you cannot remember about the Lord when your heart is not at least preliminarily clean. What happens when we try to remember God, and I'm sure you all have this experience, and I definitely have a lot of this experience. We try to remember God, but then all of a sudden we remember something else, or somebody else. Technically speaking, in the language of yoga, it's called Vyuthana Samskara. Vyuthana means something which all of a sudden surfaces in your consciousness, in your mind, and disturbs your concentration. And we all know Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And we're lucky if we're concentrated on Krishna within one Hare Krishna. The next Hare Krishna, we're already thinking about somebody else. Because there are so many samskaras out there. And they're so prominent in our consciousness. We have to remember about this bill and that bill and this doctor and this disease and this quarrel and this enemy and this problem. So, there are so many subject matters to remember. And the Lord is somewhere there. But He is overshadowed by all these other things, which seem to be more relevant. Somehow or other, in our deemed dull consciousness, we think that somebody else or something else is more remembered than more important than the Lord. And therefore, we always remember something else. And it's very difficult. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami says, Smaranam is a difficult process. Remembering about the Lord is not easy. Therefore, to start this process, initially you have to purify your heart to a certain extent. And Jiva Goswami says, how to purify your heart? He says the purification of the heart takes place when you surrender to your Guru. You have somebody who is very prominent in your life, and you surrender your life to him. You kind of you develop a close relationship. This is what I was talking yesterday about. When we have this real relationship with Guru, when we really feel his love, then it's easy to purify the heart. Then all other things, they become not so relevant and not so important. And when this preliminary purification of the heart takes place, then the consciousness more naturally flows towards the Lord. We all know, if very disturbed, if the mind is very much disturbed and there are so many other concerns, it's very difficult. But when the mind is relatively peaceful, and what it means, clear heart means peaceful heart. Clean heart means peaceful heart. Those people who are always in anxiety, it means their heart is not clean. It means they're not even in contact with themselves. They don't really know who they are, and therefore they always think about some unimportant things, some trivial things. So, therefore Jiva Goswami says preliminary purification is important, but then he says the smaranam has 5 stages, which is very important for us to understand what smaranam means. He says initially we will be able to remember about the Lord only every now and then. Kinchit anusandhanam, Srila Jiva Goswami says. Every now and then you just remember about the Lord. Oh yeah, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And then you again forget about him. So that's the initial stage of smarana. Before that, you cannot even remember about the Lord. You try to remember, the mind just goes from one extreme to another without putting itself there. But, kinchitana sandhanam means sometimes for a short while you will be able to remember about the Lord. And that's already good. Don't be desperate, don't lose your hope. Even if you sometimes will be able to remember about the Lord, it's a big achievement. You may consider yourself a very successful person, human being. Sometimes for 2 minutes I can remember about Krishna. That's wow. That's wonderful. So then he says that the next stage, if you continue purifying your heart, it's all depends completely on the quality of your heart, on the purity of your heart. If you continue purifying your heart, then the dharana may take place. And dharana is the ability to put aside everything else and to concentrate on what you want. And when the mind is, again, relatively pure, it's easy. When the mind is impure, you can't do anything with your mind. The mind is doing everything with you, not you're doing anything with the mind. The mind is, in this turmoil and you're following the mind. But if the mind is more peaceful and more clean, then dharana is possible. Dharana means that by your own willpower you will be able to put aside everything else. I don't remember about anything else. At least for this hour, everything else is not important. We have 23 hours to remember about everything else. Just 1 hour to remember about Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So when the mind is more clean, then you will be able to do this dharana. And then the next stage is called dhyana. And dhyana means during dharana, you don't remember about anything else, you concentrate it on the Lord, but you remember about Him in a very general way. But dhyana, the difference between dhyana and dharana is that dhyana means meditation, is that you remember about Him in very minute detail. You remember His eyes, you remember His earrings, you remember His hair and everything. Like, because our mind is so disturbed, when we look, even when we look at the Lord, we can't really concentrate on Him. Because the mind is always distracted. But when the mind is clean, that this dhyana is possible. Dhyana means very deep remembering about the Lord. When you remember about Him in minutest details. Like when we love somebody, especially in the separation with this person, if we really attach to Him, we start remembering how He spoke, and how He looks, and how He smiles, and we cherish this remembering in the heart. It's so beautiful. So that's dhyana. Dhyana means actually deep love already. And then Srila Jiva Goswami says the fourth stage of remembering is called Dhruvanusmriti. Dhruvanusmriti, it says that the remembering becomes like a stream of nectar. And actually, this is the stage where people can engage in this very esoteric form of meditation, which is called Ashtakaliya Lila Smarana. When they basically see the Lilas of the Lord, they're taking part in the Lilas of the Lord. They already have very, during dhyan, you forget about yourself to a greater extent. During Dhruvanusmriti, you don't remember about yourself. It's as if you're seeing the movie. When we see the movie and the movie is really good, then you don't remember who you are. Your whole consciousness is there in the movie, and you are living there, and you are completely, you're emotionally involved into what is happening in the movie, even though it's just the pictures which are flowing there. So when your mind becomes like a movie, when your mind is so clean, then you get this Vaikuntha TV or Goloka TV, the direct transmission from Goloka. This TV station is there. It's working 24 hours a day. we cannot really adjust our consciousness to catch, to make it tuned to this frequency. But if the heart is clear, then we see what's going on. And it's so beautiful, and people who achieve this stage, they're completely immersed with this ocean of nectar. They always see this direct live transmission, or live, how it's called?
Live transmission.
Yeah, live transmission. You're in this, live show with the Lord. You're with Him. So that's Dhruvanusmriti. Dhruvanusmriti, actually this term is coming from Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya explains this stage of Smarana. And he compares it when you take the oil, when you pour the water goes by drops. But when you pour the oil is just very smooth. Or if you pour the honey just flows. So when your consciousness becomes so clear and clean, then the flow of your consciousness is uninterrupted, and it always goes towards God. And it really catches Him. So that's the fourth stage of remembering. And the fifth stage of remembering is that you see the Lord, samadhi. You see the Lord directly. Because why? Because your meditation has become so deep. It's ultimately everything depends on our meditation and our ability to meditate. Our ability of meditate depends on the purity of the heart. The purity of the heart depends on our sincerity, basically. If we sincerely want to go in this direction, then we try and we practice. And then gradually from smaranam to dharana, from dharana to dhyan, from dhyan to dhruvanusmriti, and from dhruvanusmriti to samadhi. And that's it. You don't have to worry about your bills anymore. Your bills are taken care of. No need. So you are there. You are as the Lord. Therefore, as I said, that was little introduction to my class. Anyway, therefore I said this particular chapter, which is called Remembrance of Lord Krishna, therefore is very instructive in this. Because here we can see how Uddhava explains this, and he starts this chapter by saying that only if you are devotee of the Lord, only if you are true devotee of the Lord, you will be able to remember about Him properly. It's very interesting, because so many people know about Lord Krishna. And he says, even Yadavas couldn't really recognize the Lord when the Lord was there. They couldn't really understand who He is. So many people know about Lord Krishna, but he says even Yadavas, they were like fish in the ocean. And even though the fish is in the ocean, and the moon is also in the ocean, according to Puranas, the moon was born from the churning of the milk ocean. So the fish is there in the ocean, and the moon is there in the ocean. But the fish thinks this moon is it's just another fish. It's a moonfish. The fish doesn't really understand that the moon is moon. The moon is, many folds more important and more glorious than any fish. But fish looks at the moon and says, oh yeah, this is my relative flowing here. So here Uddhava, he gives this comparison. He says that the Yadavas, when the Lord was there, they said, oh yeah, he's good. Lord Krishna is good. He's my relative. He's one of us. They didn't really understand. Oh, they thought he's just Paramatma. They didn't understand that he is the Supreme Lord Himself, the highest manifestation, the Adi Purusha, the original avatari, not just Paramatma or anything else. And then he says, Uddhava says then, quote-unquote normal people who are atheists, they couldn't figure out who Krishna is, and they say, oh yeah, he was one of this, he created all this war in Kurukshetra, and therefore he died. Because Gandhari cursed him. Gandhari cursed him, and therefore he died. He actually, that was his bad karma. He created this bad karma. Yeah, this is how people think. Even now people think like this. And then the people think, that he had mortal body and he left this mortal body. They cannot understand what was going on. And they criticize the Lord and this and that. And therefore Uddhava, initially he says, you cannot remember the Lord properly. Because it's not a question of, again, remembering somehow. Of course, it's a question of remembering somehow, but ideally you have to remember the Lord as He is. You have to understand who He is to remember Him properly. And therefore, Uddhava says, you can only remember Him properly if you understand, oh my goodness, that's the Supreme Lord. Then only you will be able to appreciate His beauty and appreciate His words and appreciate everything which is connected with Him. those scholars, they study Bhagavad Gita and they say this Bhagavad Gita was written within a period of 500 years and everyone was adding something, and therefore it's so, there's no sense in this book. Because it's speaking about Dhyana Yoga and Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga and this and that, and he doesn't know what he wants to say. They just don't understand who he is, and therefore they cannot understand who he is. Prabhupada, he was so emphatic, he says, I'm giving to you Bhagavad Gita as it is. Why he was so bold? Because he said, because I'm devoted to the Lord. That's the only condition why I can explain Bhagavad Gita as it is, because I know the Lord as He is. I know He is the Lord, and therefore I can explain Bhagavad Gita properly. I will not diminish the meaning of the words of Bhagavad Gita, and therefore so many people got this knowledge from Prabhupada, because he gave as it is. So that's exactly what Uddhava also says this. You can only remember about the Lord if you understand who the Lord is. Otherwise you will say, oh yeah, right. Nice person, or clever politician. Very, very clever, whatever. Like Duryodhana. Duryodhana saw the Lord. Was he able to think about the Lord at the moment of death? No, forget it. Even when the Lord was standing in front of him, what Duryodhana was doing? Duryodhana was glorifying himself. Look how great I was. So many kings were bowing down to me, and I was walking on the heads of my enemies, and I was so great, and everyone was glorifying me. The Lord is standing in front of him. He's remembering about whom? About his wretched self. About his karma, basically. So that's the preliminary thing which Uddhava is explaining. You have to understand who is the Lord, and then you will be able to understand that the Lord, why He comes here, what does it mean that He comes here, what does avatar mean, who was the Lord. The avatar means this Sanskrit phrase, sarve mam pashyatu. Avatar means, all of a sudden the Lord says, let everyone see me. Let everyone be able to see me. Those who are deprived of this, let them see me. And let's see, at least I give them the chance. Now we're blinded, we don't see the Lord, even though He's here. And Prabhupada gives this example of the sun. During the night we don't see the sun. Does it mean that the sun is not there? No, because we are, because our vision is limited. The Lord is there. He's right there now. Do we see Him? No. Why? Because we're dull. But when the Lord wants, He says, okay, let them see me. And let them decide. He comes for this, and if I understand this is already a great step in the right direction. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusuntanam asritam. What is it? Bhajate tadrisham krida yaksmaram tatparobhade. It's a very important verse from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, from this Rasa Leela section. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusyantanam asritam bhajate tadrisham krida. Why the Lord comes to this world? What is the reason? Anugrahaya bhaktanam. To show the mercy to the devotees. And what He does, He accepts this mortal body as it is, human body, not mortal body, definitely not mortal body. Manusyantanam ashrita, He takes the shape of a human being, because as it's said here in this verse, it's very suitable for this pastimes. he doesn't come with the 4 arms, with 6 arms, with 10 arms. He doesn't come with the head of the lion. He comes just like a human being. He comes in this body. Manushantanamastrita bhajate tadrisham krida. And he, listen very carefully, because this is actually the explanation of this verse as well. He comes to play krida, the pastimes, tadrisha, which is suitable for this appearance, for this body, for this human-like body. He plays as a human being. Yatsmare, and those who remember it, tat paro bhave. Those who remember about this pastimes and knows that that's the Lord, even though he plays as a human being, he will have to become tat paro. He will have to become, his mind will change. He will be inclined towards the Lord. He will develop this inclination. Basically, what it is said in this verse of Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami says, you will love the Lord if you know that the Lord, who is the most powerful, still plays as a human being. If you understand this, Tatparo Bhavet, inevitably your heart will be inclined towards the Lord. Your heart will melt. You will become so pleased and so happy. Just for a split second, imagine who Lord is. When he is sleeping as Mahavishnu, he is just breathing. And when he breathes out, when we breathe out, nothing good is coming out of our body. And usually nothing good is coming out of our body. There is nothing glorious is coming out of our body. When the Lord breathes, the universes is coming from the pores of his body. Huge universes. Huge. Gigantic. And he just sleeps. Just one breath in, one breath out, and so much is happening, this and that, all this Second World War, Third World War, Trump, Putin, everything. It's going on, it's so important. The Lord is just sleeping. And the universe is there, and then the universe starts and then it finishes. That's the Lord. And what he does? Yeah, he plays like a simple human being, like a little child. He plays with his mother. He gives the opportunity to his mother to chastise him. And he sometimes becomes fearful and says, "Mother, mother, please save me." And mother says, "Yeah, my child, don't worry about it." So, what Shukadeva Goswami says, if you understand who is God, then your heart will be inclined towards him. Tat paro bhavet. You will not be able not to think about the Lord. The inclination will develop if you always read Bhagavatam. Actually, Bhagavatam is the way to remember about the Lord, and therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami recently I read this on the occasion of Gaur Purnima. There is a long commentary of Jiva Goswami about the reason of this Anarpita Charincharat verse about the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, why he appears this and how he appears this and what he comes to give. So, but what he says there, that you can get prema just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam actually is the way to get love of God. And therefore, Uddhava, he says, you will be able to remember about the Lord if you understand how he plays as the human being. And he says in the previous verse, very beautifully he says, Svabimbam lokalochanam. He starts by describing the beauty of the Lord, of the form of the Lord, of his roop. And he says, Svabimbam, his body is lokalochanam. He says that when the Lord was here, please listen, when the Lord was here, whoever would see him, lokalochanam means that the Lord would become the eyes of the people who saw him. Because they couldn't see anything else. They would just look at Krishna and say, my goodness, so beautiful. So what Uddhava wants to say to us, he was so incomparably beautiful, much more beautiful than Aishwarya Roy. or whoever Miss Universe is there, Mr. Universe, or whatever it is. People, I remember we were there when Bhakti Maharaj was opening his temple in Ujjain, and Aishwarya Roy came there, the whole city was running just to have a glimpse of Aishwarya Roy. But Krishna is much more beautiful than Aishwarya Roy. Believe it or not. So what Uddhava says here, when people would see Krishna, they would become stunned. How is that possible to be so beautiful? Lokalochanam, there was nothing else. The eyes would not be able to go in any other direction. When Krishna was in Vrindavan, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan would run and look at Krishna. And then the gopis would curse Brahma. The gopis are very pious village girls. And pious village girls, they usually, worship all the demigods. And these pious village girls, they would say, he's such a stupid fellow. He doesn't know what he's doing. Why did he make these eyelids? Because they couldn't tolerate the moment when they cannot see the Lord. It's not exaggeration. It's just the experience, how beautiful the Lord is. And Uddhava, he remembers about the Lord to give us a little sense how beautiful the Lord is. And he says, Yanmartya Lila Uparikam Svayoga Maya Balam Darshayata Grihitam. He showed by his Maya, by his Yoga Maya, by his spiritual energy, this Martya, the body which is like a human being, which is suitable for this human-like pastimes, but still his body was Vismapanam. Vismapanam means that it was so wonderful, so amazing, that nobody would be able to believe how amazing it is. Srila Rupa Goswami, he says that when the Lord himself would see his own reflection, he couldn't believe. He says, oh, that's me. Oh, really? Am I that beautiful? Rupa Goswami tells this story that sometimes once in Dwaraka, Krishna saw his reflection in the polished column of the palace, and he became stunned, and he says, "Oh, so beautiful." So that's what he says. This is how you start remembering about the Lord. Mayabalam darshayata grihitam. Vismapanam svasya sa sobagardhe. Svasya, here Prabhupada, he explains that even he in the form of Lord of Vaikuntha becomes amazed when he saw Lord Krishna. The story or the pastime is there in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Mahavishnu stole these little children of a Brahmana. And when Krishna with Arjuna came to the abode of Mahavishnu, and Krishna says, give us these children of Brahmana. The Mahavishnu says, take it. I just made it as an excuse to see you. And this is the proof. Srila Jiva Goswami uses the proof that, sometimes people say that, Krishna is just some avatar and Mahavishnu is God. No. Mahavishnu himself wants to see Krishna. Who is higher? Who is higher? If you want to see Mr. Trump, it's not that, if you want to see Mr. Trump somehow or other, you have to make arrangement to see Mr. Trump. It's not that he's, Krishna can't care less about Mahavishnu. But Mahavishnu wants to see Krishna. And that's why Krishna is not just an avatar. Krishna is avatari. Krishna is the avatari, the source of all avatars. And that's exactly what Uddhava says. He came here and he was so extremely, unbelievably beautiful that even Lord of Vaikuntha wanted to see him. And even he himself was amazed by the beauty. And that's the main quality of the Lord. What is the main, why he's called Krishna? Krishna means what? Krishna means beautiful. Beauty is the main quality of the Lord. That's his main opulence. Knowledge is not his main opulence. He can't care less about, when he's a village boy. But in the spiritual realm, knowledge is not so important. Renunciation is not so important. Even opulence is not, the riches is not so important. But beauty of the heart, and therefore, Uddhava says, when you remember about the Lord, first which you remember, that's the Lord, He's the Lord. You remember that He's not a human being. He says very clearly here, Svayoga Maya Balam. He manifested Himself by His own Maya, His Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya Balam. By this Yoga Maya Balam, He manifested Himself just to give us some experience. To give us Anugrahaya Bhaktanam, those who are inclined to become, who potentially can become Bhaktas, from the mercy towards those people. And we still remember about Him. 5,000 years back. It's really amazing if we consider this. We know everything about Krishna. We know which dress he wore. We know what he took for his breakfast. 5,000 years after. Because this memory is so important. And it is said that in Brahma Samhita also that the Lord comes, how it is, Govinda Manipurusam, but there are many of course, but Lila Etena Bhuvanani Jayata Jashtam. He comes Smaranamupetya to give other people the chance to remember about Him. And we know about everything about Krishna. We know minutest details about His life, 5,000 years back. Why? Because He Himself wanted it. He came and it made such a deep impression in people's lives that still people remember about it. Here was Krishna. And therefore, Uddhava, he says, you first remember who He is. That He is the Supreme Lord with all His opulences coming here. And then you remember His beauty. And initially you remember His external beauty, but then you remember what? The beauty of His heart, His kindness, His mercy. And that's probably the next verse which we will read tomorrow. Ahovaki yat stana kalakutam tikam sayavaya tapyasadi. That's in the same chapter, where initially first Uddhava explains his beauty, and he says his beauty is bhushana bhushanangam. Bhushana bhushanangam means, usually we put ornaments to beautify our body. We put the rings, and the ring in the nose, and this, all kinds of necklaces. And people look at these necklaces and they say, such a beautiful person, but they appreciate the gold and the craftsmanship of all this. But usually people put all these ornaments to attract the attention towards themselves. If there was no, ornaments, nobody would look at them. But in case of Krishna, it was vice versa. Everyone was looking at him and said, it says, these ornaments become so beautiful when they are with you. When they are not with you, they are not so beautiful, but you are beautifying the ornaments. Bhushana bhushanangam. So beautiful he is. This is also what women in Mathura says when they see Krishna for the first time in their life. Just imagine all these women in Mathura and the rooftops of Mathura, they're looking at Krishna, and Krishna is, he's walking through the city together with Balaram. And the women in Mathura, they say, Gopyastapah kimacharam yadamushya rupam, lavanya saram asamordvam, ananya sidam. They say, what is this austerity which these gopis perform when they see all the time, whom they see all the time, lavanya saram, the essence of all beauty. Lavanya saram. Saram means essence, quintessence of lavanya. Lavanya means effulgence of beauty. Lavanya saram asamordvam, asama urdam. Nobody is higher or nobody is equal to him. And ananya siddham means that he is perfect himself. He does not depend on anything else to become perfect. Anya siddham. The same thing as here. We depend, to become perfect, we depend on something else. Cosmetics, some lipstick, and this nice cosmetics and this and that. Krishna is not like this. He doesn't need lipstick. His lips are naturally red, like bimbo fruit. So that's what Uddhava says. And by reading this verse, we are able to have little glimpse of how beautiful Krishna is. Bhushana bhushanangam. Oh my goodness, how beautiful he is. And in this way we will be able also to remember a little bit about the Lord, depending on the purity of our heart. And if we cannot remember about the Lord, too bad for us. It just means that the heart is not clean enough to reflect the beauty. But if the heart is even little clean, then the reflection of Krishna's beauty, by reading this verse, the Krishna's beauty will be reflected in our heart. And we will think about it again and again and again, and remember this verse again and again and again. And in this way, we will make our life successful. Ante Narayana Sugati. In this way, we will be able to remember about the Lord at the moment of death. And then go to Him. And then, no problem. Live good life in the spiritual world. So, and that's what is there. And Prabhupada explains, of course, that he surpasses everyone, and he just manifests himself. He is not really, even though it is said here, grihitam, he accepted the body, but actually, Uddhava already said before that the Lord is like the sun, and sun is always there. The Lord never accepted the body. It's just a way to explain it to us, and therefore Srila Prabhupada didn't translate this grihitam in the word by word as accepting. He said discovered. He just revealed manifested his body, which is always there. It's not that before he was, some horrible creature, and then for his pastimes in the earth he accepted human-like body. No, this body is eternal, and that we have to understand. And Grihitam means he just revealed, manifested it for our vision. Why? To engage us in remembering him. Lilayate bhuvanani jayate shasvan. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibha vitavi stadirya eva. No, stadirya eva nijarupate. No. Ananda chinmaya rasa. Ananda chinmaya rasa. Smaranam upetya. Lilayate bhuvanani jayate shasvan. Memory is not there. So, this is what, and Prabhupada says that the pastimes which he performed, like Rasa Lila, that were so amazing that everyone wanted to see these pastimes. It was so beautiful, so extremely beautiful. Anyway, this is few words about this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you. Any question? Or shall we finish? It's already late.
Right, when you say that the real challenge in being able to reflect the beauty of the Lord, and you said that through the verse, through the shlokas. So the real challenge is the cleansing of the heart process. So does the reading of the Bhagavatam and going deeper into the shlokas will help in the cleansing to finally let what the Lord is saying, what Shukdev Goswami is saying, to reveal from within? So how does that?
No. Yes and no. But see, the first, it really depends, because so many scholars may study Srimad Bhagavatam.
Right.
Does their heart become free? Not necessarily. Because they maintain their false identity or false independence. And therefore they cannot really read Srimad Bhagavatam. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam means Srimad Bhagavatam is higher than you, and you just open your heart towards Srimad Bhagavatam. Then only something may happen. But if you read like this, Srimad Bhagavatam, you're higher than Srimad Bhagavatam, Mr. Let me figure it out now. It's not going to work. So therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami says the preliminary purification of the heart takes place when you reject your false independence by surrendering process. First, surrendering should be there. Without surrendering your false independence, I am independent, I myself know, I can figure it out with my intelligence, I'm better, without relinquishing this, without becoming humble, without really opening one's heart towards this, we will never be able to purify the heart, because the main contaminating factor will still remain there, which is false ego, false identity of some kind. So therefore, the preliminary cleansing means surrendering oneself, and then everything else. Therefore, if we don't surrender ourselves and we chant Hare Krishna, in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says you can chant it for many hundreds of lives. Good luck, no problem. Go on chanting. Nothing happens. Or not much happens. No, something happens, no doubt about it. But not much. So therefore, Prabhupada was so emphatic about this. He was so emphatic about this. And people don't understand this. Especially intelligent people don't understand this. The most stupid people in this world are those who are very intelligent. They're most stupid because they cannot really, understand the process. They criticize, I heard this, they criticize Prabhupada. I don't want to repeat this, but they don't understand this mechanism. Therefore, you can only read Srimad Bhagavatam after you surrender. Then it will be something. You can read Srimad Bhagavatam, but the real fruit of reading will come to you only if you surrender. As much as Maharaja Pariksit was completely surrendered to Sukadeva Goswami. Then the Srimad Bhagavatam happened. If he was not surrendered, nothing would change in his life.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Shiva Prabhupada ki jai.
As always, Bhakti Vijnana.